Beneath a patient desert moon, the world can feel simpler than it does in daylight. The mind loosens its grip, the shoulders settle, and somewhere far away, yet strangely close in imagination, there is a wide, calm place where sand meets stone on the edge of the Giza Plateau. Tonight, you do not need to solve anything. You do not need to prove a point, or win a debate, or carry a heavy answer to bed. Tonight is only a slow looking, like resting at a window when the street is finally quiet, letting your eyes settle on one steady thing. In that stillness, a monument waits. It does not announce itself with a headline. It does not raise its voice. It does not wear a date the way people wear watches. It simply remains, the great Sphinx facing east, watching the horizon where morning begins again and again. If you're listening after a long day, let your breath soften. Inhale gently and exhale as if you're letting warm air fog a cold pane of glass. Feel how the body understands safety when the pace becomes slow. The Sphinx has stood through countless dawns. It has been buried, uncovered, repaired, looked at, forgotten, remembered. It has watched the sand drift like a thin blanket across stone, and watched that blanket be lifted away by human hands, only for the wind to lay it down again. Its age is not written on its skin. And that single, quiet fact has kept a simple question floating near it for centuries. How old is it really? We will not chase a shocking number tonight. We will not force the stone to speak in a language it never learned. Instead, we will walk slowly through what can be seen, what can be touched, and what can be said with gentle care. We will notice the way evidence gathers softly, like dust on a shelf, until a picture begins to form, not sharp-edged, but comforting in its honest blur. KBVD53. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Ancient Sleep Story. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Now imagine the first scene as if a quiet camera is floating above the desert, moving without hurry. Below the plateau is a pale, rough skin of limestone, rising slightly from the darker sand. The air carries a thin coolness. The wind does not push, it brushes. It moves grains in tiny waves like breath moving the surface of water in a bowl. At the eastern edge, the Sphinx rests in its shallow enclosure, part sculpture, part landscape, carved from the ridge itself. From afar, its outline is simple: a head, a lion's body stretched forward, paws reaching toward the morning. But when you come closer, the simplicity breaks into textures. Stone is never truly smooth. Even in moonlight, you can sense the grain, the chalky softness of weathered limestone, the small shadows in tiny pits. There is something steadying about stone that has outlasted so much. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not argue with the night. It holds its posture and accepts what comes: wind, sand, a rare rain, a hand patching a crack, a whispered prayer left like a small offering. If you could step into this place, your footsteps would be muffled by sand. The sound would be gentle, almost absorbed before it fully exists. The desert has a way of swallowing harshness. You might notice a rhythm that belongs to this plateau. Sand covers, sand uncovers, sand covers again. It is not dramatic. It is more like a tide, inevitable, calm, repeating. For the Sphinx, this rhythm has been part of life. There were times when only its head was visible, rising from dunes like an island. There were times when more of the body returned to view, and people could walk beside its flanks, study the curves, lay a palm on cool stone. Sand, in its patient way, has two faces. When it piles high, it shields lower stone from constant wind abrasion, as if offering protection. But at the boundary where buried stone meets open air, sand can hold moisture and salts. That boundary shifts up and down over long years, and as it shifts, it leaves different patterns of wear. Soft hollows here, sharper ledges there, like a slow handwriting. A monument can be ancient and still be changing. It can stand for thousands of years and still need care, like any life that continues. So in our story tonight, we will let the Sphinx be what it truly is, not a single frozen moment, but a surface made of many moments layered together. On the plateau, the stone itself has layers. Some beds are harder, more stubborn. Others are softer, more willing to crumble. When wind and time touch those beds, they do not wear evenly. One layer recedes, another stands out, creating steps and recesses. If you've ever seen old wooden stairs deepen under countless feet, you already understand this kind of quiet difference. The material has its own personality. This is one of the first gentle truths. Uneven weathering does not automatically mean uneven age. Sometimes it simply means uneven stone. And yet, curiosity remains. Along parts of the enclosure walls, the shapes look rounded, softened in a way that feels different from straight sand carving. There are faint grooves running downward, as if water once found a path and returned to it. Nothing about these marks screams. Nothing demands a dramatic conclusion. They simply exist, and they invite careful looking. The question is not, was there water? Because water touches limestone in many ways, even in dry lands. Dew at night, a brief storm, moisture rising through pores, a thin film that comes and goes. The quieter question is, what kind of wetness? For how long and under what conditions? We won't answer that yet. We will only hold it lightly, the way you might hold a smooth pebble while listening to a faraway sound. To understand why the Sphinx's age feels both present and elusive, notice something else. The written record arrives late, like a friend who shows up after the party has already begun. The earliest famous text connected to the Sphinx is a granite stela placed between its paws, often called the Dream Stela. It tells of a young prince, Thutmose, resting in the shadow of the great head. He is tired, the sun is high, he lies down, and in sleep he dreams that the Sphinx speaks to him, not with threats, not with fireworks, with a promise. Clear away the sand, care for me, and you will be king. It is a story about maintenance, about attention, about the tenderness of keeping something alive. And it is also a quiet clue. By the time that stela was set up, the Sphinx was already old enough to be partly buried, already revered enough to be treated as a sacred presence. The text does not say who carved the monument. It does not give a birthday. It gives a relationship. That, too, is a gentle truth. History often records devotion more readily than beginnings. Around the Sphinx, the plateau holds other stone stories. Nearby, massive temple blocks sit in orderly courses. Causeways run in long lines, guiding the eye and the feet. The architecture of this area is often linked to the Old Kingdom landscape and to the pyramid complex traditionally associated with Pharaoh Khafre. Many scholars see the physical relationships, the way blocks seem to come from the enclosure, the way alignments fit the wider plan, as a steady anchor for placing the Sphinx within that era. And yet even a steady anchor leaves a little slack. Stone can be reused, plans can evolve, and the plateau has been touched by hands across many generations. Some repairs helped, some repairs, especially those using hard modern mortars, trapped salts and moisture, creating new damage beside older stone. A quiet irony, even care can leave scars when the materials do not match. So when we look at the Sphinx today, whether in photographs or in the mind's eye, we are seeing a layered being, Ancient carving, ancient repair, modern repair, and the slow touch of the environment, all resting on one another like blankets on a bed. If you are the kind of person who feels calmer when things are clear, I want to offer a small permission. It is okay that the story is layered. It is okay that one question does not have one clean answer. The night is not asking you to solve it. The night is only asking you to listen. And still, curiosity can be a gentle companion, a small candle, not a spotlight. So here is our soft seed of mystery. The stone refuses a single date. It holds evidence in textures and relationships, but it does not hold a calendar. It stands in a landscape that suggests one story, while its surface whispers hints that could fit more than one rhythm of time. Which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. Let that question rest at the edge of your mind like sand resting at the edge of stone. You do not need to grab it. You do not need to wrestle it. Just let it be there, quiet and small. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to walk along the plateau in the cool hours before dawn. We will watch how the Sphinx faces the east and how the land around it holds the memory of quarrying, planning, and devotion. We will meet the gentle idea that time does not always move in straight lines. It moves in layers, like wind over sand. For now, let the image settle. A vast, dark sky, a pale ridge of limestone, and the steady presence of the Sphinx, neither demanding nor disappearing, simply waiting as you let your eyelids grow heavy, quite gently. The night is still with us, but it is thinning. Not in a hurry, not with a sudden switch of color, only with a slow change you can almost miss if you blink. The desert has its own way of preparing for morning, a soft cooling in the low places, a delicate loosening of shadows, a faint clarity that appears along the horizon, as if someone is turning down the darkness one gentle degree at a time. Imagine you are standing on the Giza Plateau in that quiet hour before dawn. The air is clean and dry. It carries no perfume, only the simple scent of stone and dust, like a well-kept attic where time rests calmly on old wood. Above you, the sky is wide and patient. A few stars still remain, small and steady, like quiet pins holding the fabric of night in place. Below your feet, the plateau is limestone, pale even in dim light. It does not feel like a floor so much as a natural shelf lifted above the sea of sand. And if you listen closely, you can sense a deep silence that belongs to places that have held their shape for a very long time. Not empty silence, but full silence, the kind that lets the mind stop performing. If you are listening from a bedroom, let your body borrow that silence. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands unclench. If a thought tries to rush in, you do not have to chase it away. You can simply let the thought pass like a thin cloud moving across a moon. Ahead, the land slopes gently toward a carved enclosure. In that hollow, the great Sphinx rests as if the ridge itself decided to become a guardian. From this distance, you can already feel its orientation. It faces the east. It looks toward the place where the sun returns. Day after day, year after year, century after century. That direction alone can be soothing because it is a promise of repetition. And repetition is one of the oldest lullabies. The East is not only a compass point, it is a rhythm. It is the idea that darkness ends, that light arrives without being begged, that time can move forward without needing us to push it. As you walk closer, the sand changes underfoot. Sometimes it is packed firm like a thin skin. Sometimes it gives slightly, making a soft hush with each step. The sound is gentle enough to feel like you are moving inside a dream, where even your footsteps are careful not to wake anyone. The Sphinx enclosure appears as a quiet cut into the plateau. Walls of limestone rise around it, and even in low light, you can see that the stone has different moods in different places. Some layers stand out more strongly, creating small ledges. Other layers seem to have retreated, leaving shallow recesses. This is not a flaw. It is simply how the stone lives with time. On the body of the Sphinx, the contrast between head and torso is often noticed. The head appears more defined, holding its shape a little better. The body seems more softened. People sometimes want this to be a dramatic clue, but it can be a gentle clue instead. Limestone is not identical from one bed to another. In one area, the rock is more durable. In another, it is more willing to weather. Over many seasons, the same wind can touch two layers and leave two different results. The desert wind is not an artist who only uses one tool. Sometimes it carries fine sand that smooths and rounds. Sometimes it carries nothing at all and only cools the stone. Sometimes it moves in steady bands, and sometimes it swirls in small eddies around edges. Over time, these patterns can create a surface that looks like it has been slowly breathed on. And then there is sand itself, the quiet blanket of this landscape. Sand is not only a material, it is a habit. It gathers, it drifts, it settles, it covers what it touches, and in doing so, it both hides and protects. When the Sphinx was buried, the lower stone was sheltered from constant wind. When the Sphinx was uncovered, the stone returned to air, to salt, to dew, to the tiny changes of temperature that make limestone expand and contract in invisible ways. Think of sand as a soft hand that comes and goes. It does not stay forever. It does not leave forever. It returns. If you have ever felt comforted by a blanket at night, you already understand the image. The blanket can warm you, but it can also press lightly on the body and remind you where you end and the world begins. Sand does something similar to monuments. It marks a boundary, it makes an edge, it creates a line where buried stone meets open air, and that line can become a quiet signature of time. Now let us pause a moment and breathe. Inhale slowly, as if you are drawing in the cool air of the plateau. Hold for a soft second. Exhale and let your shoulders sink. Let your breath become the pace of this story. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The Sphinx has been part of human looking for a very long time. People have stood where you are standing now. Some came with reverence, some came with questions, some came simply to feel small beneath something that felt eternal. You can imagine travelers from distant lands arriving with tired animals and dusty clothes, seeing the giant form and falling silent. You can imagine scribes and scholars trying to place it within their understanding, using words the way we use maps. You can imagine local caretakers, people whose work was not to debate but to clear sand, to patch stone, to keep the presence of the monument from slipping entirely back into the dunes. And then you can imagine the plateau before any of those people, when it was only a ridge of limestone and a field of sand and a sky that kept turning. Somewhere nearby, other monuments rise, shaped with strict geometry. Pyramids that hold their own kind of quiet. From certain angles, the Sphinx and the pyramids share the horizon like old neighbors who have learned to coexist without conversation. The landscape feels planned, yet also natural. It is a place where humans tried to align their lives with the movements of the sky. In this setting, one idea becomes very calming. The Sphinx is not alone on an empty plain. It belongs to a broader world of stone, pathways and temples. Blocks were cut, surfaces were leveled, lines were made to point toward certain directions. That work required patience. It required repetition. It required hands that learned the rhythm of chiseling and hauling and setting. Even if we do not name every person, we can honor the presence of their effort. We can let it be enough to know that many lives moved with steady purpose here, and that their steady purpose left something quiet behind. If your day has been filled with demands, it can be soothing to picture work that was heavy but simple. Stone, rope, wood, muscle, sun, a task done in small steps. A block moved a little today, a little tomorrow, a little again. Sometimes the mind relaxes when it imagines labor that has one clear motion. As we stand by the Sphinx enclosure, we can notice the smallest sounds. A faint hiss of wind across stone. A grain of sand tapping another grain. Far away, perhaps a bird calling once, then falling silent again. The world is not loud. It is only alive in a quiet way. And now the horizon begins to change. A thin band of light appears in the east, not bright, but clear. It is a pale promise like the first line of a letter written in a calm hand. The Sphinx faces that band. It has done so for longer than any human memory. In the gentle light, the stone looks warmer. The color shifts from gray to faint gold. Shadows stretch and then loosen. The enclosure walls reveal more detail, small irregularities, places where the rock surface is slightly rounded, places where it is more sharp, places where repair has blended with original stone like a patch sewn carefully into an old quilt. Here is the soft discovery for this part. The Sphinx is not one surface. It is many surfaces layered together. Nature has written on it. People have written on it. Time has written on it. And when you look at it, you are adding your own quiet attention, which is also a kind of writing. Stone does not give us a date, but it gives us texture. It gives us edges. It gives us the memory of touch, and perhaps that is why this monument is so calming to think about before sleep, because it reminds us that not everything in life needs to be pinned to a single moment. Some things are meant to be lived as layers. Some things are meant to be understood slowly and never fully finished. As the light grows, you may notice something else. A gentle line on the stone where sand once reached. It is not a dramatic mark, only a subtle difference, like the faint line on a wall where an old picture frame once hung. That line hints at cycles of burying and clearing, cycles of forgetting and remembering. In the next part, we will follow that hint into a quiet story of a young prince who slept in the shadow of the Sphinx, and a dream that asked for nothing more than care and attention. We will let the dawn settle around us, and we will step into that dream as if we are stepping into a calm room where time is waiting with a soft smile. Let the question rest, like warm desert sand settling after wind. In the early hours, when the sun is still gentle, the desert can feel almost kind. The light arrives slowly, not as a glare, but as a soft wash that warms the limestone and turns the sand into pale gold. If you imagine yourself there, you may notice how the air holds a quiet coolness close to the ground, while the higher air begins to brighten. This is the hour when shadows are long and calm, and the mind can move without hurry. Beside the Sphinx, the enclosure is like a small valley carved into the plateau. The walls rise around you, and the monument rests within them, as if it has chosen this hollow as a place to breathe. Even though it is enormous, there is something restful about its posture. Its lion body stretches forward, paws extended not in a leap, but in a patient reach, as if it is simply settling into a comfortable position to watch the day begin. This is where one of the most soothing stories connected to the Sphinx begins, not with a chisel, not with a royal proclamation, but with a person lying down to rest. Long ago, a young prince came to this place. His name was Thutmose, and he was not yet the ruler history would later remember. He was simply tired. The sun was high, the day was heavy, and the shade near the Sphinx offered a rare softness. He lay down near the great pause where the stone threw a long, cool shadow onto the sand. If you have ever rested in the afternoon when your thoughts were too loud, you can understand that impulse. Sometimes the body seeks a shadow before the mind knows why. Sometimes we find peace first with our skin, with our breath, with the simple relief of coolness. Thutmose closed his eyes. In that shade, the world became quieter. The wind softened. The distant sounds of life on the plateau faded into something like a lullaby. And then, as sleep came, a dream arrived. In the dream, the Sphinx spoke, not with thunder, not with fear, but with a voice that belonged to the stone itself, steady, ancient, and strangely intimate. The message was not complicated. It did not demand a riddle be solved. It asked for care. It asked for attention. It asked for the sand to be cleared away so the monument could breathe again. And in return, it offered a promise. Do this, and you will become king. Later, when Thutmose did become pharaoh, known to us as Thutmose IV, he placed a tall stone slab between the Sphinx's paws. This slab is often called the dream stela. Its carved lines preserve the story, not as a modern diary would, but as a sacred memory shaped into stone. If you imagine the stela standing there in the early morning light, you can picture the carved hieroglyphs catching shadows in their grooves. Each line is a small valley where darkness rests. The text is not only information, it is texture. It is a reminder that even words, when carved into stone, become part of the landscape. What is gentle about this story is what it does not say. It does not clearly tell us who first carved the Sphinx. It does not give a date of creation. It does not say, this monument was made by this hand on this day. Instead, it speaks of a relationship between a person and a presence. It speaks of a monument that already existed, already carried reverence, and already needed care. That absence of an origin story in the text is not a failure. It is simply the way history often arrives. It keeps the parts people felt and loses the paperwork. If you think about your own life, you may notice something similar. There are moments you remember in detail and moments you only remember as a feeling. Some beginnings are clear, others dissolve. Yet the relationship remains. The presence remains, and sometimes that is enough. So in our gentle journey, we allow the dream stealer to become a soft lantern. It does not illuminate everything, but it shows a few important shapes. By the time of Thutmose IV, the Sphinx was already old enough to be half buried. The sand had already done its slow work, covering the body, leaving the head visible above the dunes like an island of stone. That image alone can quiet the mind, a great head emerging from sand, patient and unbothered, waiting through seasons of covering and uncovering. There is something comforting in the idea that even the largest things can be hidden for a time and still return. The act of clearing sand is not glamorous, it is repetitive, it is humble, it is a kind of devotion that does not seek applause. You can imagine teams of workers with baskets and tools, lifting sand away day after day, making space for the monument to be seen again. You can imagine the quiet rhythm of their movements, the soft scrape and hush, the way the body learns a task and repeats it until the mind becomes calm. In that time of clearing, imagine the sounds as if they were part of a soft song, baskets being set down with a muted thump, breath moving through cloth, a quiet murmur of voices that never rises into argument. The sand is light, but there is a lot of it, and so the work becomes patient. One scoop, another scoop, another. A small hill becomes level, a hidden stone edge becomes visible. Morning after morning, the monument returns by degrees, like a memory returning while you wake. And with each return, people bring small offerings of meaning. Some might see the Sphinx as a guardian, Some might see it as a symbol of royal power. Some might simply feel its calm gaze and become quiet themselves. The plateau can hold all of those feelings at once without conflict. It does not ask anyone to choose a side. It only asks you to stand, to look, and to breathe. If you like, you can rest your attention on the east again. The sun rises there, whether we know every detail or not. And this brings us back gently to a question you may carry in daily life. Which brings us more peace? Knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty? Tonight, you do not have to decide. You can let uncertainty be soft, like a pillow that supports the head without pushing back. You can let the open question sit beside you, harmless, as you drift quietly. In that rhythm, the Sphinx enters recorded history, not as a sudden event, but as an ongoing presence. The monument is less like a headline and more like a horizon, something that remains while people come and go. Beyond the dream stela, later visitors from other worlds would mention the wonders of Egypt in their own languages. Some wrote of pyramids and temples. Some spoke of statues and old mysteries. Their accounts are like passing footsteps in sand, brief impressions that fade, yet still tell us that the plateau was always being looked at, always being remembered in some way. And then, in medieval times, chroniclers in Egypt wrote of monuments that stood like silent elders in the landscape. They described what they saw, what they heard, what people told them. These voices are different from the voices of the Old Kingdom, but they share one quiet truth. The Sphinx remained a point of attention. Even when buried, it was not entirely gone. Even when uncovered, it was never fully explained. If you are listening late at night, let that be soothing rather than frustrating. Some things do not need to be fully explained to be meaningful. Some things can be simply present, and their presence can be enough. Now picture the moment after Thutmose's dream became stone. The stela stands between the paws like a bookmark placed in a very long book. The sun rises, the Sphinx faces it, the sand shifts. The day moves forward, centuries pass. The monument is repaired in places, patched sometimes with blocks that do not perfectly match, sometimes with care that aims to preserve rather than to transform. The wind continues its slow brushing. Dew comes and goes in the night. The boundary where sand meets open air changes again and again, drawing faint lines that look like the soft rings inside a tree trunk. This is the heart of our journey, time in layers, not time as a single number. So when we ask how old the Sphinx is, we can hold the question gently. We can imagine that the Sphinx has had more than one age. There is the age of the carving, the age of the repairs, the age of the centuries of weathering, the age of the moments when people stood in its shade, the age of every sunrise it has watched. And perhaps there is also the age of your listening tonight, this moment when the monument becomes part of your own inner landscape, part of the quiet room of your mind. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And as you settle deeper into comfort, remember, curiosity does not have to be sharp. It can be soft. It can be like a small candle beside the bed, not bright enough to wake you, only warm enough to make the room feel safe. In the next part, we will begin to look closely at the stone itself, the way it holds signs of wind, moisture, and different layers of limestone. We will keep our pace slow. We will let the evidence speak in whispers, not shouts. And we will continue to walk together toward the calm understanding that some questions are allowed to stay open. For now, let the image of that dream rest beside you. A young prince asleep in the shade, a monument speaking softly, a promise not of power alone but of care. Let your breathing be steady, let your thoughts become distant. Let the night hold you gently. Morning has fully arrived on the plateau, but it is still the kind of morning that feels gentle. The sun is bright, yes, yet it is not harsh. Light spills over limestone the way warm tea spreads through a cup, slowly, evenly, with no sharp edge. Shadows retreat into the enclosure walls, and the Sphinx begins to look less like a silhouette and more like a living landscape made of texture. If you were standing near the monument now, you might notice that the first thing you read is not a sentence, but a surface. The stone offers no calendar, no inscription that says, "This is my birthday." Instead, it offers small physical memories, rounded corners, shallow hollows, faint lines that curve and fade. In a quiet way, it is like reading someone's face. You do not need a date to sense that time has passed. You can see it in softness and depth, in the way light falls and refuses to fall. This is the soft discovery we promised. The Sphinx does not tell its story with numbers. It tells its story with touch. To keep the mind calm, we will look at these touches the way you might look at ripples on water. Curious, but not tense. Each ripple can be noticed and then allowed to pass. Start with the simplest companion of the Sphinx, wind. Wind is always present here, even when it is quiet. Sometimes it moves as a whisper across the plateau, barely stirring the sand. Sometimes it comes in steady bands, and the grains move like tiny schools of fish shifting together. Over a long enough time, even a whisper can shape the world. A dry wind carrying fine sand can polish, it can smooth, it can soften an edge that was once sharper, the way a river stone becomes rounded after countless days of water. But wind is not alone. The desert has another subtler visitor, moisture. It may sound strange to speak of moisture in a place so dry, yet moisture arrives in small ways. Night air cools and a faint dew can form. Rare storms can pass through, brief and forgettable to the sky, but meaningful to stone. And beneath the surface, salts can move through the pores of limestone like slow travelers, rising and resting, swelling and shrinking with changes in humidity. You do not need to picture chemistry. You can picture something simpler, stone breathing. When moisture touches limestone, it does not always carve dramatic channels. Often it works in a hush, it loosens grains, it makes a surface slightly more fragile. Then when the surface dries again, tiny crystals can form and press outward. This pressure is small, but it repeats, and repetition is powerful. So the stone becomes a diary written in cycles: damp, dry, a slow heartbeat, a slow tide. Now think of sand again, that patient blanket. When sand piles up against the body of the Sphinx, it can protect the lower stone from constant wind abrasion, like a quilt shielding skin. Yet where sand meets open air, it can also hold moisture longer. That boundary, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, can leave a subtle band of different weathering. It is the kind of mark that feels familiar if you have ever seen a shoreline, a faint line where water once reached, a line that says without words, "Here is where the world touched me." This is one reason the Sphinx can look unevenly aged. Not because time was uneven, but because the conditions were. The head, for example, often appears more defined than the body. That can feel like a clue that wants to become a dramatic theory, but it can also be a gentle lesson in material. The limestone layers that form the body are not identical to the layer that forms the head. Some beds are harder, more compact, more resistant. Others are softer, more vulnerable, more willing to recede. Over centuries, the same environment can leave different signatures on different layers. You might imagine two people standing in the same rain, one wearing a thick coat, another wearing thin cloth. The weather is the same, but the effect is not. And then there is the human touch, which is also part of the diary. People have repaired the Sphinx many times. They have patched weak areas, filled hollows, replaced missing pieces, added stones like careful stitches. Some repairs were made long ago with materials closer to the original limestone. Some were made more recently, sometimes with harder mortars that did not breathe the way limestone breathes. When a patch is too hard, it can force water and salts to move into the softer, original stone beside it, leaving new wear near the seam. Even so, the intention behind repair is tender. It is the intention to keep a presence in the world. It is the intention to prevent disappearance. And that intention matters, even when the results are complicated. So when you look at the Sphinx, you are seeing not one age, but many ages folded together. The age of carving, the age of burial, the age of clearing, the age of repair, the age of modern conservation, the age of every sunrise that warmed the stone and every night that cooled it again. This layered age can be comforting to think about before sleep because it mirrors something human. We too are made of layers. We carry the child we once were. We carry the years we worked too hard. We carry the evenings we were lonely. We carry the mornings we felt hopeful again. And sometimes we forget that these layers can coexist without conflict. Now, there is a quiet question that often arises when people try to date stone. Can we measure how old limestone is, the way we measure the age of wood or bone? Here is a calm answer. Stone itself does not carry the kind of organic clock that radiocarbon dating reads. Limestone is mineral, and minerals do not preserve that particular kind of timestamp. Instead, people look for nearby traces of human activity: charcoal, bits of organic material, mortar that contains tiny remnants of life, things that can be dated and then placed in relationship to the stone. This is a gentle distinction, and it matters. Such dates can tell us people were working here around this time. They can tell us this structure was being used, repaired, built, or occupied, but they do not always tell us the exact moment a face was carved from the ridge. So the Sphinx remains, in a way, beautifully undated. It is a monument that invites humility. And humility can be restful. Because when we accept that we may not hold a single perfect number, the mind can stop tightening around the question. We can loosen, we can let the story be larger than our need to pin it down. If you feel yourself drifting while you listen, that is welcome. You do not need to stay sharply awake. You can let the images float. Imagine a close-up now as if the camera moves slowly along the Sphinx's side. Sunlight glides over the limestone like a hand. It reveals tiny ledges where a harder layer stands proud. It reveals shallow scoops where a softer layer has stepped back. It reveals faint vertical traces that could be water's old pathways, or the gentle runoff of rare storms, or the combined whisper of dew and time. Nothing is certain in a way that demands stress. The stone is not asking you to be a judge. It is inviting you to be a witness. And being a witness can be peaceful because it means you can simply notice and then rest. Let your breath follow the camera's pace, slow, steady, unforced. Inhale, exhale. The plateau does not hurry, the Sphinx does not hurry. Time does not hurry, not in the long view. In the next part, we will widen our view again and place these textures within the broader landscape of the Old Kingdom plateau. Pyramids, temples, causeways, and the quiet logic of how the place was shaped. We will keep our steps gentle, as if we are walking barefoot on cool stone. For now, let the soft idea settle into you. Stone records touch, but it never records a date. And perhaps tonight that is not a frustration. Perhaps it is an invitation to rest inside the open space where certainty is not required. There is another quiet way to look at the Sphinx's surface, one that feels less like a laboratory and more like listening to an old song. Notice where the stone seems to lean inward, where it feels sheltered, where the wind would have curled around an edge. and lingered. Notice, too, how the enclosure walls form a small micro-world, shade lasting longer on one side, heat collecting on another, sand piling in corners the way dust gathers in the quiet places of a room. And if you imagine the rare moment when rain does come, brief, surprising and soon gone, you can picture thin threads of water finding the easiest paths downward. They would not roar like rivers. They would slide softly over rock and into sand, leaving behind only a suggestion, a faint memory that is more felt than proven. Some researchers read those hints as a sign of wetter ages. Others emphasize the long power of wind, salt, and groundwater in shaping limestone. The important thing for tonight is not to choose a side. The important thing is to feel how the monument can hold multiple possibilities without breaking. If you'd like, picture yourself sitting on a low stone nearby, your back supported, your hands resting in your lap. And you feel your thoughts soften. You watch a single grain of sand tumble down a tiny ledge and settle, and you realize gently that this is how time often moves, one small motion, repeated until it becomes a landscape. One breath, repeated. One day, repeated. One sunrise, repeated. The Sphinx faces east and the world continues quietly kind. As the morning settles fully over the Giza plateau, the light becomes steadier, less like a whisper, more like a warm presence. It spreads across the limestone in broad, calm sheets, and the desert seems to exhale. If you imagine yourself still near the Sphinx, you may feel the simplest comfort of all: the world is awake, yet it is not rushing. From here, it helps to widen the view, the way a slow camera drifts upward and back. The Sphinx remains in its enclosure, facing east, but around it the plateau opens like a stage made of stone. Lines and planes appear, paths, terraces, blocks placed with intention. This is not only a landscape of sand and wind, it is also a landscape of human planning shaped by many hands who worked with patience day after day in a rhythm as repetitive as waves. If you've ever found peace in watching someone do a careful task, folding laundry, kneading dough, sanding a piece of wood, you already know why this matters. The plateau is full of evidence of careful tasks, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. In the Old Kingdom, the builders of pyramids and temples worked in seasons. The Nile rose and fell, the fields were flooded. When farming paused, labor could shift towards stone. In that cycle, you can sense a quiet practicality, almost soothing, life moving with the year, not against it, work and rest taking turns. Picture the limestone ridge before it became a monument. It was simply a long, layered body of rock with beds that differed in hardness. Quarrying is not only cutting, it is listening, learning where the stone wants to break, where it resists, where a wedge will open a seam. A practiced hand can feel the stone's grain through a tool. A practiced ear can hear the difference between a clean strike and one that will crumble an edge. When blocks were removed, the plateau changed shape. Cuts became walls, hollows became courtyards, the places where tools bit into rock became quiet vertical faces catching shade, and in one place the ridge itself became the Sphinx, carved down into a form that is both sculpture and geology. Nearby, the extracted stone could become temple blocks fit in courses like calm, heavy sentences. Now imagine the journey of a single block. It begins as part of the ridge, then becomes a rectangle with rough sides, then is smoothed where it needs to meet another stone. Ropes stretch, wood creaks, feet shuffle in sand. A block that looks immovable to us is moved by many small efforts. A pull, a pause, a pull again. Someone wets the sand ahead to reduce friction. Someone calls a gentle rhythm so the group moves together. The sound is not a roar, it is murmured coordination, the quiet intelligence of a group breathing and pulling as one. If you are listening from a busy American city, cars outside, screens still glowing in your mind, let that image help you slow down. A heavy thing moves only as fast as steady hands allow. Not faster, not slower, just steady. And when the block reaches its place, there is a moment of stillness. The stone is set, a corner aligns, a line becomes true. In that moment, time feels thick like honey. A task ends and quiet returns. This is one reason many researchers connect the Sphinx to the broader building program of the pyramid complex, traditionally associated with Khafre. The physical neighborhood matters. Causeways, valley temples, mortuary temples, and the Great Pyramid form create a kind of architectural conversation. Even without naming every technical detail, you can feel the logic of a planned, sacred landscape. A path from river to plateau, from life to monument, from the everyday to the eternal. But notice how we can hold that anchor gently. An anchor does not need to be a chain that tightens the mind. It can be a soft tether. It can say, here is a likely neighborhood of time, without demanding a single perfect answer. And perhaps that is the best way to approach the plateau before sleep, with respect for what is likely and kindness toward what remains uncertain. Now imagine following one of the long stone lines that once guided processions. Your feet move slowly over ground that is uneven in small ways. Some places are smooth, worn by many steps. Other places are rough, scattered with pebbles that crunch softly. The air is warm now, but a slight breeze still moves, lifting a faint veil of sand and laying it down again a few steps away. As you walk, you can picture the people who once walked here, not as dramatic characters, but as quiet presences. A worker carrying water, a priest murmuring a phrase under his breath, a supervisor checking a line, making sure a block is set true. Their lives were real, full of ordinary concerns, tiredness, hunger, pride in good work, worry for family. If you feel stressed in modern life, it can be calming to remember that human hearts have always held similar weights, even in different shapes. There were simple smells too: sun-warmed stone, dust, wood, sweat, and the faint sweetness of water carried in porous jars. There were small sounds, sandals scuffing, a tool laid down, a cough, a laugh that rises briefly and then settles. Life was not only solemn, it was human. And in the middle of those ordinary lives, there were moments of silence. A moment when the wind cooled the skin. A moment when the sun rose and made the stone glow. A moment when someone paused, leaned on a tool, and simply looked. The Sphinx, in that sense, is not only a royal symbol, it is also a witness to small pauses. If you return your attention to the monument's face, you might notice the way it seems to look beyond the immediate world. The gaze is fixed toward the east, toward beginnings. That orientation is not accidental. In ancient Egyptian thought, the rising sun carried deep meaning, renewal, return, the steady promise that what fades will come again. To face east is to face a cycle you can trust. Cycles are soothing because they reduce the fear of endings. They whisper, this is not the end, this is only a turning. You can let that whisper touch your own day. If today felt heavy, it does not have to define you. Like the desert night, it can soften. Like the horizon, it can change. Now there is another gentle detail. Even the largest monuments were never finished in a single breath. They were built, maintained, modified, repaired. The plateau is not a frozen photograph, it is a living archive. Later generations left their own marks, small structures, small clearings, small lines of attention. The Sphinx was cleared more than once, repaired more than once, protected, neglected, protected again. A long life, not a single event. This is where a quiet truth becomes comforting. History is often a series of revisits, the same place returned to by different people, each bringing their own needs, and our own lives are similar. We revisit old memories, we revisit old questions, we revisit old hopes. Each time, the meaning shifts slightly, like light shifting on stone. So, when the question of age returns, when someone asks, "How old is the Sphinx?" you can answer softly that age here is a field, not a pin. It is a range of likelihoods held within a landscape of relationships, stone cut from ridge, temples nearby, alignments and plans, and the long history of being cared for. If your mind tries to grip the question tightly, you can loosen the grip. You can place the question down as if setting a small object on a table. It will still be there later. It does not need to stay in your hands tonight. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. And if you like, hold this gentle thought. The people who built and cared for these monuments were not only chasing immortality, they were also practicing devotion through repetition. They were making something steady, something that could outlast a single lifetime. In doing so, they made a place where even we, so far away in time, can come to rest for a moment. Before we move on, let the day reach its quiet middle. Imagine the sun climbing higher, brightening the plateau until the limestone seems almost white. Heat shimmers above the stone in soft, wavering curtains. In that midday light, the world can feel too sharp, and so people seek shelter where they can, behind a wall, beside a block, in the long shadow cast by something larger than themselves. The Sphinx's enclosure becomes more than a monument. It becomes a refuge. The air inside is cooler by a few gentle degrees. Sand in the shade holds a trace of night. A person can sit with their back against stone and feel the steadiness travel up the spine. They might sip water slowly, letting the coolness spread through the body. They might close their eyes for a moment and listen to the faint hiss of wind, the quiet scrape of a distant footstep, the soft pulse of their own breath. And in that simple pause, something changes. The mind stops arguing, the heart stops rushing. You remember in a calm way that rest is not a reward you earn. It is a home you return to. Even the ancient stones seem to say, gently, it is okay to be unfinished and still enough. In the next part, we will let the camera drift back toward the Sphinx's enclosure again, and we will listen to the quiet argument of the stone itself. Head and body, hard layers and soft layers, sand lines and shadow lines. Not to fight over them, but to understand how evidence can be gentle and how it can teach us to rest. For now, let the plateau remain wide in your mind, pale stone under warm light, long paths, and the steady eastward face of the Sphinx, watching the horizon without needing to explain it. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. By the time the sun begins to lean toward afternoon, the Giza Plateau feels both bright and quiet, as if the whole world has been washed clean and left to dry. The air shimmers gently above the stone, the sand looks pale and soft, like flour scattered on a wooden table, and the Sphinx remains where it has always been, resting, facing east, letting the hours move around it. If you could sit near the enclosure now, you might choose a place where the shadow of a wall offers relief from the light. You would feel the coolness at your back. You would hear your own breath more clearly. And in that calm, you could begin to notice the Sphinx, not as a single object, but as a body made of layers. Each layer with its own temperament, each one answering time in a slightly different way. This is a gentle kind of looking, not the looking of someone trying to win an argument, not the looking that tightens the jaw. It is the looking that softens the eyes, the way you look at a sleeping pet. or at rain sliding down a window. You are not demanding. You are simply present. Start with the lion body stretched forward in a long, patient line. When people speak about the Sphinx, they often begin with the face because faces pull the human heart. But tonight, we can let the body speak first because the body holds so much of the monument's quiet diary. The limestone here is not one uniform substance. It is a stack of ancient seabed layers pressed into stone long before any human dream. Some layers are denser and harder, resisting the slow nibbling of wind and salt. Other layers are softer, with a grain that yields more easily. When time touches these layers, it does not treat them equally, because the layers themselves are not equal. In certain light, you can see this difference as a kind of stair-step pattern along the flanks. One band stands out, the next band recedes. The line between them is not sharp like a knife. It is softened by weathering, like an old book's edges worn smooth by many hands. If you let your imagination drift closer, you can picture running your fingertips along such a line. In the harder band, the stone would feel slightly firmer, its surface more stubborn. In the softer band, it might feel powdery in places, the grain loosening under the gentlest touch. This is not damage in the dramatic sense. It is simply the personality of the material revealed over a very long time. Now notice the head. The head is smaller in proportion to the body, and it often appears more sharply defined. The cheeks, the brow, the outline, though weathered, keep a certain clarity. To an anxious mind, this contrast can feel like a problem begging for a dramatic solution. But to a calm mind, it can be a soothing lesson. Some stones hold their shape longer than others, and some parts of a monument live under different conditions. The head, rising above the sand for long periods, may have avoided some of the most persistent moisture and salt boundary that forms where sand meets air. The body, for much of history, was closer to that shifting boundary, sometimes buried, sometimes half-buried, sometimes cleared. That boundary is where quiet changes concentrate, dampness lingering a little longer, salts forming and dissolving, grains rubbing and polishing. So the contrast between head and body can be read gently as an echo of cycles, cover and uncover, shade and sun, damp and dry. And this is where the desert's lullaby returns, repetition. Imagine the centuries as a slow tide of sand. In one era, the Sphinx is more visible, and people can walk beside its pores. In another era, the body disappears beneath dunes and only the head remains, an island of stone watching dawn. Then, hands return, clearing sand again, restoring sightlines, repairing weak spots, placing blocks where needed. And later, the wind returns and the sand begins its quiet work again. A monument like this lives in a loop, not a loop that traps it, but a loop that carries it like a gentle rocking. If you are listening from a place where life feels like a loop, wake, work, worry, sleep, this may comfort you. Because loops can be heavy when they feel meaningless, but they can also be soothing when they carry care. The Sphinx's loop has been a loop of attention, disappearance, rediscovery, preservation, and return. Now let the camera of your mind drift toward the enclosure walls. Along these walls, some shapes appear rounded, softened, as if water once moved down the stone in thin sheets. In other places, the surface looks more sharply carved, the result of wind and sand. The truth is that limestone can be shaped by many quiet hands at once, wind polishing, moisture loosening, salt expanding, heat and cold breathing in and out. It is possible for different readers of stone to emphasize different parts of this chorus. Some will point to the rounded forms and say, in careful tones, that wetter conditions may have played a stronger role at some point. Others will point to the desert's long persistence and say that wind, groundwater, and salt can, over enough centuries, soften stone in ways that resemble water's work. The plateau can hold these readings without becoming a battlefield. Tonight, we do not have to choose certainty as a weapon. We can choose calm as a home, which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. Let the question rest again as lightly as a feather on a blanket. You can feel how the body relaxes when it does not have to grip an answer. Now there is another gentle point that helps the mind stay soft. How do we date a monument when the stone itself is not a clock? Think of the work like arranging a room by lamplight. You may not see every corner, but you can see enough to move safely. Researchers look for things that can carry time in a measurable way. Organic traces connected to human activity, charcoal from fires, bits of wood, plant fibers, or the organic material sometimes embedded in mortar. These can be dated, and they can tell us when people were building, repairing, or working nearby. But that is different from dating the moment the rock face became a face. So what we get most often is a calm picture made of relationships. The Sphinx sits within a landscape that strongly suggests the world of the Old Kingdom. It is surrounded by temple architecture and planning that fits that era, and it carries a long record of later care and intervention. We can anchor our understanding and still allow some slack for the unknown. Unknown does not have to be frightening. Unknown can be a quiet room where the mind can rest its head. Now let us step away from the sun for a moment and follow the Sphinx's shadow as afternoon deepens. In the enclosure, shade becomes a soft pool. The air cools by a few degrees. Sand in the shade looks darker and more velvety, like fabric. The stone smells faintly chalky, a clean mineral scent. In that shade, picture one person, an imagined caretaker, not named, not famous, simply doing small work. Brushing sand from a corner, checking a patch, adjusting a stone block placed earlier. This person's work is quiet, and that quiet work is part of the monument's life. We rarely know the names of such caretakers. History often remembers kings and monuments but forgets the hands that kept them standing. Yet the monument itself remembers in a way, because each repair becomes part of the surface. Each choice becomes part of the diary. If you feel unseen in your own life, if you feel your efforts go unrecorded, let this soothe you. The world is full of quiet caretakers, and their care matters even if it is not carved into a stela. Now imagine a different visitor centuries later, someone from far away arriving with curiosity. Perhaps they stand at the edge of the enclosure and simply stare. Perhaps they whisper a thought to themselves and leave. Their footprint is brief, but their attention is real. The Sphinx collects attention the way sand collects at a wall, gently, naturally, without effort. In later ages, writers would speak of Egypt's wonders. A Greek traveler, a medieval chronicler, a modern archaeologist, different eyes, different languages, all turning toward the same steady presence. The details they offer vary, and sometimes they misunderstand what they see. But the important thing is the continuity of looking. The monument keeps being seen again and again, like a lighthouse that continues to glow even as ships change. And now here you are, in a different century, listening to a story in the dark. Your attention joins that long line, but it does so in a way that is soft, not demanding. You are not here to conquer the past. You are here to rest beside it. Let your breathing slow. Inhale as if you are breathing in the cooler air of the enclosure's shade. Exhale as if you are letting the day slide off your shoulders. Feel the weight of your own life become lighter, even if only by a small amount. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. And as the afternoon light turns warmer, the Sphinx's surface changes color, pale gold to deeper honey. The textures deepen, the small shadows in pits and grooves grow more visible. It is as if the monument is reminding us, I am not a single statement. I am a long conversation between stone and time. A gentle moment of suspense arrives here, not as fear, but as curiosity. If the stone carries many layers of weathering and repair, what layer belongs to the first carving, and what layers belong to later hands? Where does the ancient end and the later begin? The answer is not a sharp line. It is a blend, like dusk blending into night. In the next part, we will follow that blend into evening again. We will watch the plateau cool, and we will let the Sphinx return to its most natural companion, the night wind, and we will move closer to a soft turning point, one that does not shock but opens the heart. The idea that the Sphinx's greatest gift may not be its exact age, but its ability to teach us how to live with time. For now, let the body of the lion rest in your mind, stretched forward in patience. Let the layers of limestone become like layers of a blanket. Let the unknown become gentle, and let your eyelids grow heavy, as if the desert itself is humming you towards sleep. Afternoon begins to soften into evening on the plateau, and the change is so gradual you could almost miss it, like the slow lowering of a voice in a quiet room. The heat that shimmered above the stone all day starts to loosen its hold. The light turns warmer, more honeyed, and shadows lengthen again, calmly reclaiming the places they know. If you imagine yourself still near the Sphinx, you may feel this shift in the simplest way. The air against your skin grows gentler. The stone beneath your hand is less hot, more friendly. And the sand, which looked pale and dry at noon, begins to darken in tiny pockets where shade gathers, becoming soft as velvet. This is one of the desert's quiet gifts. Its evenings are not abrupt. They are patient transitions. They let the body uncoil. So let your breath follow that transition now. Inhale slowly, as if you are drawing in the last warmth of the day. Exhale slowly, as if you are letting that warmth leave your shoulders, one small layer at a time. Around you, the plateau becomes a place of long lines and quiet geometry again. The pyramids in the distance hold their edges against the glowing sky. The causeways become gentle paths of shadow and light. And the Sphinx, in its enclosure, seems to return to its favorite state, half in brightness, half in shade, like a thought that is both present and drifting. In this hour, the monument can feel less like an artifact and more like a companion. Not because it speaks, but because it does not. It allows you to be quiet without demanding anything in return. People often come to the Sphinx carrying questions the way they carry heavy bags. Who made it? When? Why? How? And sometimes they bring another bag too, an invisible one filled with the pressures of daily life, deadlines, worries, the feeling of being behind, the ache of uncertainty. But the Sphinx does not take those bags from you by giving you a single, perfect answer. It does something gentler. It shows you what it looks like to remain steady in the presence of the unknown. If you let your mind rest on the monument's profile, you can sense that steadiness. A head, a lion body, a gaze fixed toward the east. It does not look left and right. It does not chase the day. It does not flinch when the wind shifts. It simply keeps its orientation toward return, toward renewal, toward the soft certainty of dawn. This steadiness is a kind of lesson, and it arrives without words. Now imagine the enclosure as dusk deepens. The walls hold the day's warmth and release it slowly, like a stone hearth after a fire has gone down. The air inside becomes a little cooler than the open plateau, and the difference feels comforting, like stepping into the shade of a doorway. Somewhere, a small breeze begins to move again, not strong, not urgent, just enough to lift a veil of sand and set it down with a whisper. You can hear it. A hush, a hush, a hush. The desert making a lullaby out of repetition. And repetition, once again, brings us back to time. When we speak of the Sphinx's age, we are often tempted to picture time as a single line with a single point marked birth. But the monument suggests another way of thinking, one that feels more suitable for sleep. It suggests time as layers, time as cycles, time as a long, gentle breathing. There is the time when the ridge was first carved into form. There is the time when sand covered the body like a blanket. There is the time when hands returned to clear it. There is the time when repairs were added, some old, some newer, each one a quiet act of preservation. There is the time when the surface softened under wind and salt and rare moisture. And there is the time of every visitor, every gaze, every moment of attention laid upon it like another layer of dust. None of those layers cancels the others, they simply coexist. If you're listening tonight with a mind that wants to tidy everything into a single answer, you may feel a small tension, the way fingers tighten around a knot. That is understandable. The modern world rewards certainty, it rewards speed, it rewards conclusions, but the plateau rewards something else. It rewards patience, which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. You can let that question land in your body rather than your thoughts. Feel how the chest loosens when it does not have to defend an answer. Feel how the forehead smooths when it does not have to measure and calculate. The Sphinx is not an exam, it is a presence. And perhaps that is the soft turning point that begins here in dusk. The realization that the greatest gift of the monument is not what it can prove, but what it can teach, a way of being with time that is calm and wide and forgiving. Consider the stone again, the way it holds a diary without dates. We noticed how some limestone beds are harder and some are softer, how the body and the head weather differently, how sand can protect and also create boundaries where moisture lingers. Those details are not meant to make you tense. They are meant to make you humble in a gentle way. The stone is saying, I am older than a single sentence. I am older than a single method. I contain more than one story. When you accept that, you become softer too. Now, as the sky turns from gold to rose, and then to a deepening blue, imagine a small group of people in another century arriving here at this same hour. They do not bring bright lights, they do not shout. They stand with their hands at their sides and simply look. Perhaps one of them says a few words quietly and then falls silent again. Across history, so many people have done the same. They have come to this place at dawn or dusk when the world feels most spacious, and they have let their thoughts quiet down in the presence of something that endures. Endurance can be healing. Not because it erases pain, but because it reminds you that pain is not the only thing that lasts. Calm can last too. Care can last. The simple rhythm of day returning can last. So let the desert's dusk do its work on you. Let your day, whatever it contained, begin to cool the way the plateau cools. Let the sharp edges soften. Let the loudest thoughts become distant. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And if the story has brought you a small pocket of peace, allow yourself to keep it. You do not have to spend it. You do not have to justify it. You can simply hold it as you would hold a warm cup in both hands and feel it steady you. In the enclosure, shadows now wrap more of the Sphinx's body. The paws are darker. The flanks dissolve into shade. The head remains visible a little longer, catching the last light like a candle flame. This is the desert's way of preparing the eyes for night, slowly lowering brightness until darkness feels natural. The first star appears. At first, it looks like a tiny mistake in the sky, a single point of silver. Then another appears, and another. The stars return the way they always do, quietly, without applause. And in that returning, you can feel a promise. The night is not empty. It is filled with small, steady lights. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Now, let us place one more gentle thought beside the monument before we move on. Sometimes the reason a perfect answer remains out of reach is not because the past is hiding in malice, but because the past simply did not record itself the way we record today. People cared for what mattered to them. They wrote down devotion, duty, and dreams. They did not always write down origins with the precision modern minds crave. So the silence around the Sphinx's first moment is not a failure. It is a kind of invitation to practice reverence without certainty. And this is where our quiet suspense deepens, not with fear, but with wonder. If the monument's most honest language is texture and relationship, how do we listen well? How do we let evidence be gentle and still let it guide us? Somewhere beyond the enclosure, the plateau's edge falls away toward the ribbon of the Nile Valley. You cannot see the water from here, but you can sense that it exists, like a memory you don't picture clearly, yet trust. Long ago, that river's cycle fed the seasons of work and rest, carrying people in and out of this landscape. Even now, the idea of it can be soothing. A hidden current moving steadily in the night, reminding you that life continues without urgency. If you'd like, imagine placing your palm against the limestone for a moment. Feel the stored warmth, gentle and fading. Feel how the stone does not fight the cooling. It simply releases what it held. You can do the same. You can release the day. You can let it go, not with force, but with softness, as if you were opening your hand and letting a handful of sand slip away. In the next part, we will step closer to a few specific anchors of human presence around the Sphinx, signs of clearing, signs of care, signs of later hands returning to the same stone. We will approach these anchors the way you approach a sleeping room. Softly, respectfully, without sudden movement. For now, let dusk settle fully. Let the plateau cool. Let the Sphinx become a darker shape against a darker sky. And let your mind become like that sky, wide, quiet, and ready for rest. Night comes back the way it always does in the desert, not as a door slammed shut, but as a veil drawn gently across the light. The last warmth of the day lingers inside the limestone, and then, little by little, it releases itself into the cooling air. On the plateau, the colors fade from honey to ash blue, and the world grows quieter, as if the horizon is lowering its voice to match the hour. If you imagine yourself near the Sphinx now, you might feel the calm that arrives when a place stops being watched by sunlight. The enclosure becomes soft with shadow, edges blur. Details turn into suggestions. And in that softness, the monument feels less like an object to measure and more like a presence that keeps you company while you settle toward sleep. This is a good time to remember another gentle truth. The Sphinx has never been alone with the wind. Across centuries, people have returned to it, not only to wonder, but to care. Their names often fade like footprints in loose sand, but their touch remains in small ways, stitched into the stone like quiet repairs on a well-loved coat. Imagine, first, the simplest act, clearing sand. It is easy to picture sand arriving dramatically in storms and sudden waves, but much of the time it arrives quietly, grain by grain. A thin drift gathers against a wall. A small ridge forms near a pore. A corner fills as if it is being gently tucked in. And if no one clears it, the sand continues to do what it does best. It covers. Then at some point hands return. Sometimes a ruler orders the clearing. Sometimes caretakers do it as part of routine work. Sometimes a new generation arrives with new curiosity and new methods, wanting to see what lies beneath what has been softened and hidden. They bring baskets, tools, and patience. They bring water too, because even the driest work needs small kindnesses. In lamplight, you can imagine those workers moving in a slow rhythm: scoop, lift, carry, pour, scoop, lift, carry, pour. The sound is gentle, mostly the hush of sand and the soft thud of a basket being set down. If voices rise, they rise only enough to coordinate, then fall again into quiet. It is not dramatic labor, it is repetitive labor, and repetition can become soothing when it is steady. As the sand is removed, stone appears like a memory returning, a curve of flank, the edge of a pore, the base of an enclosure wall. Each revealed surface feels like a small awakening, not the sharp waking of an alarm, but the slow waking of the mind when morning light enters a room. The Sphinx does not suddenly become new. It becomes visible again, and visibility is its own quiet kind of rebirth. And once the monument is revealed, the next act begins. Repair. Repair is a tender word. It is the word we use when we admit that time has been working, and we choose not to meet it with anger, but with care. For the Sphinx, repairs have taken many forms across many eras. Some were small, like filling a fragile gap. Some were larger, like reinforcing weak stone with added blocks. Each repair is a conversation between two moments in time, the moment of the original carving and the moment of the caretaker who says softly, "I want you to remain." In the modern era, care has become more organized, sometimes more visible, and often more cautious. There are excavations that bring the body of the Sphinx back into view. There are conservation efforts meant to slow deterioration and guide moisture away from vulnerable areas. There are careful discussions about materials, about what to add and what to remove, about how to respect the monument's long life without forcing it into a shape that does not belong to it. Even when opinions differ, the underlying impulse is often the same: to protect what cannot be replaced. But tonight, we do not need the details of every project. We only need the feeling behind the impulse, because the feeling is human, and it is healing. Picture a conservator standing in the enclosure at dawn. The air is cool. The stone holds night inside it. The person is not loud. They move slowly, touching the surface with gloved hands, reading the limestone the way you read a friend's face when they are tired. They notice a fragile patch. They notice a seam where older stone meets a later repair. They notice a pale bloom where salts have traveled and rested. Their work is careful and quiet because in a place like this, care must be humble. There is something deeply calming about humble work. It reminds us that not everything has to be solved by force. Some things are preserved by patience, by returning again and again, by doing small tasks well. In a world that asks you to be fast, the Sphinx asks you to be steady, and steady for the nervous system is a form of rest. Now let the camera of your mind drift to the dream stela again, that tall slab placed between the pores. In moonlight, its carved lines are shadows inside shadows. The stela is a reminder that a story can be both fragile and enduring. Paper tears, voices fade, but stone holds impressions for a long time, even if it cannot hold a perfect date. This is where the Sphinx becomes a soft teacher for us. It shows us how to live without a single, neat timeline. Many people in modern life feel anxious because they cannot place everything precisely. They want the exact reason for a feeling, the exact cause of a worry, the exact moment something changed, But the mind is not always built for exactness. Sometimes it is built for layers. Sometimes it is built for ranges. Sometimes it is built for acceptance. So when we stand even in imagination beside the Sphinx, we can practice that acceptance. We can practice letting a question remain open without letting it become a threat, which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. If your body answers before your thoughts do, you may notice something gentle. Uncertainty can feel lighter when it is held with kindness. Uncertainty becomes heavy only when we treat it like a failure. The Sphinx never treats uncertainty like a failure. It simply continues to face the horizon as if to say, the next dawn will arrive whether or not you solve me. And that is a relief. Now imagine the plateau at night with a few small lights in the distance, careful lamps, never too bright, placed where people move. The rest of the landscape is dark. Above, stars return in quiet clusters. The air cools further and the stone begins to feel almost silky to the touch. In that coolness, you can sense a long chain of caretakers, ancient workers clearing sand, later hands patching stone, modern teams studying and preserving, and even you listening now offering attention. Attention is not nothing. Attention is a form of care. When you give a monument your quiet presence, you keep it alive in the human world, the world of meaning. And meaning is also a kind of preservation. It is how the past continues to warm the present, even when the facts are incomplete. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe it was a place you visited once at dusk. Maybe it was the feeling of leaning against a wall warmed by sunlight. Maybe it was the sound of wind moving through a quiet street. Memories are like sand too. They drift, they settle, they cover and uncover. They come back when the mind is soft enough to receive them. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. As the night deepens, the Sphinx becomes mostly silhouette again. The enclosure walls sink into shadow. The face is a darker shape against a darker sky. And still the presence remains. That is the quiet miracle of monuments. They do not need to be brightly seen to be felt. They can be quiet and still, steady. They can be partially hidden and still real, the way a comforting thought can remain even after you stop thinking it. Listen for the wind now, softly. It moves along the plateau with a repeating hush. It slides over stone and then loses itself in sand. In that sound, you can hear time doing what it does best, moving forward. One breath of wind, then another. One night, then another. One sunrise waiting behind the east. If you picture that quiet work, you might also picture its quiet tools, a notebook held close to the chest, a pencil moving softly, the scrape almost inaudible against paper. Notes are taken in short lines, not because anyone wants to imprison the monument in data, but because care likes to remember. A small lamp is shaded with a hand so it will not glare. Someone pauses, looks up, and simply listens to the night. In that pause, you can pause too and let your exhale lengthen. Nothing is rushed, and the body learns to trust. In the next part, we will take one more gentle step toward the heart of the mystery, not as a battle, but as a soft opening. We will explore how different ways of reading the stone can coexist, and how the monument's silence can become a kind of medicine. A reminder that life does not always offer perfect records, and yet life can still be meaningful, still beautiful, still safe. For now, let the night settle over you as it settles over the plateau. Let your thoughts drift like fine sand. Let your breathing be slow and warm. And let the Sphinx in your imagination keep watch in the east, facing dark, patiently waiting for morning. Night on the plateau deepens into a kind of velvet quiet. The wind is cooler now, and it moves with a slower confidence, as if it has all the time in the world. Because it does. The limestone gives up the last warmth it held from day, releasing it gently into the air the way a hand releases a small bird without startling it. Shadows are no longer shaped by the sun, they are shaped by the moon, by starlight, by the simple fact that darkness is allowed to be complete. If you imagine yourself sitting near the Sphinx, you might notice how the monument changes at night. In daylight, it can feel studied, measured by eyes, photographed, compared. At night, it feels older in a different way, not older as a number, but older as a presence. The details blur, and what remains is the steady outline, the quiet posture, the sense that something can endure without explaining itself. This is where the mind begins to soften. And in that softness we can approach the heart of the mystery with care, without turning it into a contest. Because the Sphinx has drawn many kinds of listeners. Some people listen to stone the way you listen to a clock, looking for the precise tick that tells you exactly when something began. They want a date. They want a clear line between before and after. They want a neat certainty they can hold in the palm. Other people listen to stone the way you listen to wind through trees. Not expecting a single sharp word, but expecting a pattern, a mood, a slow language made of repetition. They look for relationships, how the monument sits in the landscape, how the quarry lines connect, how temple blocks match, how alignments hold. Their answers are often shaped like most likely, and within this era, not like a single number. Both ways of listening come from something human. The first comes from a desire for security. The second comes from a respect for complexity. And on this plateau, both can exist, like two lamps in the same quiet room. Tonight, we will not force one lamp to extinguish the other. We will simply let them glow softly. Imagine, for a moment, that you are walking along the enclosure wall with a small, shaded lantern in your hand. Not a bright light, nothing sharp enough to wake the night, just enough to see the surface close up. The limestone appears pale, almost ghostly. In some places it feels smooth under the fingertips, as if time has polished it. In other places the stone is rough, pitted with tiny cavities where grains have loosened and left. There are lines that look vertical, like faint trails where water might once have moved, thin, quiet paths that do not announce themselves, only suggest. And here is the gentle truth: suggestion is not the same as certainty. A line can be made by many things over enough time. A groove can deepen because water passed there, or because salts expanded there, or because temperature changed there, or because the stone itself had a weakness that the world slowly found. Even wind, if it swirls in a consistent pattern, can shape a surface in ways that look like flowing, so one listener leans close and says, softly, "These shapes remind me of water." Another listener leans close and says softly, "These shapes remind me of long desert processes, wind, salt, groundwater, and time." Neither is shouting. Neither needs to. At night, the plateau encourages this kindness. The darkness makes it hard to argue loudly. The stars make it easier to accept that some things are bigger than our certainty. Which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. If your eyelids are heavy now, let them be heavy. You do not need to keep them wide open to follow this story. You can listen the way you listen to rain, half awake, half drifting, letting the meaning sink into the body rather than the brain. Now, return to the Sphinx's face in your imagination. The head is more defined than the body. The features hold their edges a bit more clearly. The body feels softer, worn, layered. This contrast is often used as evidence in different readings, but tonight we can hold it as something simpler. a reminder that time does not treat every surface equally. A hard bed of limestone and a soft bed of limestone can stand side by side for the same number of years and still look different. A surface buried under sand and a surface exposed to air can share the same centuries and still carry different kinds of wear. So the stone teaches us something quietly scientific and quietly human at once. What we see is shaped not only by how long, but also by how. How the wind touched it, how the sand covered it, how moisture arrived and left, how salts moved in small hidden ways, how hands repaired and returned. And because how can change across time, because sand can bury and then uncover, because repairs can be added and then weathered, what we see now is a layered result, not a single clean footprint. This is why the Sphinx can feel like a riddle that refuses to be solved by force, because it is not one riddle. It is a long poem written by many authors: geology, climate, caretakers, pilgrims, and the slow turning of day into night. If you have ever tried to remember exactly when a feeling began, exactly which day you started to feel tired or lonely or changed, you may know how impossible that can be. You can remember the season. You can remember the general time. You can remember what else was happening, but the exact moment can blur, and yet the feeling is real, the change is real, the story is real. The Sphinx asks us to treat the past with that same tenderness. Now let us set down another heavy expectation. The expectation that stone should be dated the way bone is dated. Radiocarbon dating is a method for organic material. Stone is mineral. Limestone does not carry that same ticking clock. So when people try to find time near monuments like the Sphinx, they often look for materials that were used alongside the stone. Traces of charcoal, bits of organic matter in mortar, remnants of human activity that can be measured and placed in a historical neighborhood. That can be very helpful. It can tell us when people were working in the area. It can help anchor parts of the story, but it can also leave room, because people were here at this time is not always the same as this exact surface was carved at this exact moment. So again we arrive at the same gentle shape of truth. The Sphinx can be strongly placed and still not perfectly pinned. If your mind wants to tighten at that, notice it gently, then soften. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. Imagine you are placing that need for perfect pinning into the sand beside you, like a small stone you can set down. The desert will hold it for you. You do not need to carry it into sleep. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Now, if we listen in the second way, the way that values relationships, we can feel how the Sphinx sits inside a broader world that makes sense. The plateau has pyramids, temples, causeways, quarry lines, and patterns of building that fit a known era of monumental construction. The Sphinx is not an isolated oddity dropped into the sand without context. It is embedded in a landscape shaped by human purpose. That embedding is not a loud argument. It is a quiet one. It is the kind of argument that does not need to raise its voice because it has so many small, consistent pieces. And yet, the first way of listening, the desire for precision, does not disappear because humans are human. We want to know, we want to understand, we want to feel that the world is measurable. So the conversation continues softly across decades and generations, like a long, low hum beneath the larger song of the plateau. But what if, just for tonight, we take that conversation and turn it into something healing? What if, instead of letting uncertainty make us anxious, we let it teach us how to rest? The Sphinx offers a kind of therapy that does not come from explaining everything. It comes from showing us that not knowing everything does not ruin the beauty of knowing something, You can know the monument is ancient. You can know it was revered long enough ago that a prince slept in its shade and carved a story between its paws. You can know it has been buried and cleared, repaired and weathered, seen and unseen. You can know it has watched countless dawns. And you can know that the exact number of years, while fascinating, does not have to be the key that locks or unlocks your peace. Which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. If you listen closely, you might feel the answer in your muscles. Uncertainty can be peaceful when it is not treated like danger. Now let the scene widen again. The stars are bright overhead. The plateau is silent except for wind and the occasional shifting of sand. The Sphinx is a dark shape, almost indistinguishable from the enclosure until your eyes adjust, and when they do, you see it again. The outline of a head, the long line of a body, the paws reaching forward. The forward reach is not aggressive, it is patient. It is as if the monument is always gently leaning into tomorrow. And this is the soft turning point we've been approaching. The realization that the Sphinx's meaning does not rest in a single solved mystery. It rests in the way it teaches the nervous system to settle. It teaches that time can be vast and still gentle, that layers can be beautiful, that care can return again and again, that some questions can remain open without becoming heavy. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe it's a memory of standing somewhere old and quiet, an empty church, a mountain overlook, a beach at dusk, where you felt your thoughts slow down because the world was bigger than your worry. Now we will let the wind carry us toward the next part of the journey, where the story opens a little wider, toward the idea of presence versus event, toward the thought that history sometimes gives us results without receipts, monuments without minutes, endurance without a signature, and that this is not an invitation to panic, it is an invitation to trust the slow work of time. For now, let the night hold you. Let the stars feel far away and steady. Let the Sphinx remain in your mind like a soft silhouette, quiet, ancient, and strangely comforting. The plateau is at its quietest when the night has fully settled and nothing is trying to prove itself. The stars do not compete. The wind does not argue. The sand does not hurry. And the Sphinx, dark against the dark, simply keeps its posture, as if stillness were the most natural language in the world. If you've been carrying a busy day in your chest, this is a good moment to let that busyness loosen. You might notice your breathing without changing it at first. Just notice. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And then, gently, let the exhale become a little longer, like you're setting something down. In this kind of night, a soft idea begins to rise, one that can feel surprisingly healing if you let it rest in the body instead of wrestling with it in the mind. It is the difference between an event and a presence. An event is loud in the way we imagine history should be loud. An event has a date, a signature, a record, a sense of this happened right here, right then. An event feels tidy. It comforts the part of the brain that wants clean edges. A presence is something else. A presence arrives quietly. It may have begun as an event long ago, but the event has dissolved into distance, and what remains is the ongoing reality of it is here. A presence does not always come with paperwork. Sometimes the receipts are lost. Sometimes they were never written. Sometimes they were written on materials that do not survive the weather of millennia. The Sphinx is a presence. It stands in the place where it stands, and that steadiness has become the story. Not because beginnings are unimportant, but because endurance changes the shape of meaning. Once something has lasted long enough, it belongs to the sky as much as it belongs to the earth. It becomes part of the horizon. It becomes familiar in the way a coastline becomes familiar, even to those who have never touched it. This is why people keep returning to the question of age. Not because they are greedy for numbers, but because numbers feel like a handle. A handle gives the mind something to hold. When life feels uncertain, the mind reaches for handles. But the Sphinx offers a different kind of handle. It offers a lesson. You can hold meaning without holding a perfect number. Imagine for a moment a simple scene from your own life. Someone you love is in the next room, asleep. You can hear their breathing. You can feel their presence, even if you can't see them. You do not need to know the exact moment they fell asleep to feel comforted by the fact that they are there. Presence works like that. Now imagine an ancient visitor centuries ago approaching the plateau at night. No electric lights, no distant city glow, only stars and a thin moon and a small flame protected by a hand. The visitor walks slowly because the ground is uneven and the dark is honest. They come to the enclosure and stop because the silhouette is unmistakable. There is the head, there is the long body, there is the patient reach of the paws. The visitor does not know the exact date of carving. They do not know which chisels bit first into the ridge. They may not even be sure which king's name should be attached to the monument. Yet their chest still tightens with awe, their voice still lowers, their attention still becomes reverent. That is the power of presence. It does not require a timeline to be real. If your modern mind tends to worry if you find yourself asking, "What does this mean?" or "What is the right answer?" the Sphinx can become a gentle practice. A practice in letting meaning be broad. A practice in letting peace come from steadiness rather than certainty. Which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. You can answer softly in your own way, even if you do not speak aloud. Perhaps you will notice that certainty can be calming, but it can also become a restless hunger, always wanting the next proof, the next detail, the next clean conclusion. Acceptance, when it is warm, can feel like a blanket. It covers you without demanding you solve anything before you deserve rest. The Sphinx is not the only presence that lives without a perfect receipt. Many parts of history are like this. We have a temple, but not the ledger that listed every stone. We have a statue, but not the day-by-day diary of its making. We have a city's ruins, but not every conversation that once echoed through its streets. Time preserves what it can, and it loses what it must. That is not a betrayal, it is simply the nature of materials. In the same way, your own life may not come with perfect records. You may not remember exactly when you stopped feeling safe in a certain place, or exactly when you began to heal. You may only know that something changed slowly, in layers. That is still real, that still counts. So we let the Sphinx teach us. A story can be true without being complete. Outside this imagined enclosure, your own night may sound different. It might be the hum of an apartment building, a far-off siren that passes and disappears, the soft click of a heater, the faint glow of a phone you've already turned face down. It might be the kind of quiet loneliness that arrives only when the world stops asking you to perform. If any of that is true, let this be a small comfort. The plateau has held many kinds of nights too, ordinary nights, uneasy nights, nights of prayer, nights of long waiting, and nights of simple sleep. Try this very gently. On your next inhale, imagine you are borrowing the Sphinx's steadiness. On your exhale, imagine you are giving the monument your heaviness, the way you might hang a coat on a strong hook by the door. You do not have to keep holding it. Let it rest there. And if an unfinished thought comes back, tell it softly. Not tonight. Not as a fight, only as permission. Now let the camera of your mind move closer again, slowly, as if drifting on a gentle current. You are not rushing toward an answer, you are simply approaching. The stone is dark, but not invisible. Moonlight reveals small planes and curves. The enclosure walls hold pockets of shadow that feel deep and cool, like quiet corners of an old room. You can almost hear how the monument belongs to the night. In daylight, it is observed. At night, it is simply endured, like a mountain that does not care who names it. And in that endurance, another soft truth appears. The Sphinx has been many things to many people. It has been a guardian, a symbol, a puzzle, a sacred presence, a tourist destination, a research subject, a backdrop for photographs, a reason to dream. None of these meanings cancels the others. The monument holds them all, the way the desert holds footprints, until the next wind comes to smooth them away. Maybe this is why this Sphinx feels comforting at bedtime, because it reminds us that identity can be layered too. You have been many versions of yourself. You have been a worker, a child, a caretaker, a dreamer, a survivor, a friend. You have been tired. You have been hopeful. You have been uncertain. None of these versions cancels the others. They are all layers in your own long story. If you feel that thought settle warmly in your chest, let it stay. Take another slow breath in and a slow breath out. Now imagine the east again. Even at night, you can sense where morning will return. The Sphinx faces that direction as if it is always gently leaning into renewal. It does not flinch at darkness because it has seen darkness end again and again. It has watched the pale band of dawn appear, watched it widen, watched it become day, watched it fade to evening, watched it become night again. A loop that does not trap but comforts because it is dependable. In modern life, dependable things are precious. Many people who listen to sleep stories are not chasing excitement. They are chasing steadiness, and they are looking for a rhythm that tells the nervous system, you are safe now, you can stop scanning, you can rest. So we keep the rhythm gentle, we return to simple images, we let the story breathe between sentences, sand, stone, wind, stars, and the quiet east. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe it was a night drive on an empty road. Maybe it was the smell of warm stone after a summer day. Maybe it was the feeling of sitting somewhere old and calm, where your thoughts finally slowed down. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Now we are very close to the place where our journey begins to settle into resolution. Not a resolution that forces a single number, but a resolution that returns you to yourself. Calm, softened, breathing steadily. In the next part, we will let the Sphinx's lesson become more personal. How to place a question down without losing wonder. How to carry curiosity like a small candle instead of a bright alarm. We will also return gently to the dawn, because dawn is the plateau's most faithful answer, even when history stays quiet. For now, let the night remain wide, let the monument remain steady, let your thoughts become fewer, like stars that thin behind a passing cloud. Stay here a little longer, let sleep arrive, and if sleep is already approaching, let it approach. You do not need to meet it with effort, you can simply allow it the way the plateau allows the night. Somewhere beyond the plateau, the world continues with its ordinary noises. A far-off dog barks once and then settles. A distant voice rises and fades, the wind moves, and the sand answers with a hush that feels like a long, calm exhale. Here, beside the Sphinx, night holds its shape. If you are listening in bed, you might already feel that your body is heavier than your thoughts. That is a good sign. The body knows what it needs. It wants warmth, safety, and a steady rhythm. It wants the nervous system to stop scanning the dark for trouble that isn't there. It wants, very simply, to rest. So let us continue without hurry. The Sphinx remains in silhouette, but in your imagination, it is clear enough. Head lifted, body stretched, paws forward, gaze to the east. Even in darkness, you can sense its direction, as if direction itself were part of its personality. It is always leaning toward the return of light, always trusting the next morning to arrive. This is why the monument can feel like medicine, not because it cures everything, but because it models something the mind forgets when life becomes too loud: steadiness. When we talk about the Sphinx, we often circle around the question of age as if it were a locked door. We rattle the handle, we test the hinges, we wonder what is behind it. And sometimes we grow tense because we want to open it tonight, right now, before we can sleep. But the plateau invites another approach. It invites you to set your hand down from the handle, to keep the door closed for now. Not because the question is unimportant, but because your peace is more important than the feeling of having solved everything. Imagine holding your curiosity the way you would hold a small candle, not a spotlight, not a flashing sign. A candle. A candle is warm and gentle. It does not force the room to reveal every corner. It simply makes the room feel safe enough to be in. And if you fall asleep, the candle can keep glowing softly in the background of your mind, harmless, patient, waiting for tomorrow. So tonight, let your curiosity become candle light. Let it warm you without waking you. If a thought arrives, what if it's older? Or what if it's younger? You do not have to chase it down the hallway of your mind. You can greet it softly and let it pass by like a quiet traveler. You can say, "Thank you, not tonight." Which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. You can answer in your own way, in your own silence. Some people feel peace in certainty. Some people feel peace in release. Many people feel peace in a gentle blend, enough understanding to feel grounded and enough openness to feel free. The Sphinx offers that blend. It offers anchors, its place within a planned landscape, its long history of reverence, the dream staler between its paws, the repeated cycles of burial and clearing. And it offers openness, stone that keeps a diary without dates, surfaces shaped by many hands at once, a story that is true without being complete. In the quiet, you can feel how both are allowed. Now let us return to the most reliable answer the plateau ever gives: the sky. Even in the darkest hour, the sky is moving toward morning. You may not see the motion, but it is happening. The earth turns. The night thins. The east waits with patient certainty. Imagine the hours just before dawn. The stars are still bright, but they begin to look a little sharper, as if the air has cooled and cleared. The wind is colder too, and it slips into the enclosure like a careful guest. Sand gathers in shallow places, then relaxes, then gathers again, responding to every small breath of air. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls once. One note. Then silence. That single note can feel like the first stitch in the fabric of morning. If you are still awake, let your breathing match that soft preparation. Inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. If you like, make the exhale longer, as if you are smoothing a blanket over your chest. Now picture a thin band of pale light forming at the horizon. Not bright, not dramatic, just a subtle difference, a whisper of color. The Sphinx faces that band. It has faced that band through countless mornings. It is almost as if the monument is saying, without words, "You can trust this." Trust is what tired minds need. Trust that the night will not last forever. Trust that your worries can rest for a while. Trust that you do not have to hold everything at once. And here is the gentle reflection that settles into the story like a soft pillow. Sometimes we chase answers because we fear that without them, we will fall apart. But often we fall apart not from lack of answers, but from lack of rest. The mind needs sleep the way stone needs cool nights after hot days. Recovery is not optional. It is part of the cycle. So it is okay tonight to pause the chasing. If you are listening from a place where the day never truly ends, an office that follows you home in your pocket, a calendar that keeps tapping your shoulder, let this be your permission to step out of that current for a while. Picture your phone face down. Picture the last light in the kitchen turning off. Picture the room becoming simple again. A bed, a blanket, a quiet ceiling, the steady sound of your own breathing. Some nights the mind acts like a diligent worker who doesn't know when to clock out. It keeps sorting, reviewing, replaying. It thinks, if I just solve one more thing, I will finally be safe. But safety does not always arrive through solving. Often it arrives through slowing. So try a small, gentle practice, as if you were on the plateau with your back against cool stone. Let your tongue rest in your mouth, soft and loose. Let your eyebrows smooth, as if warm water is washing over them. Let your shoulders drop by the smallest amount, just a fraction, like sand settling. If a thought returns, treat it the way you treat wind. You notice it and you let it move on. The east will still be there in the morning. And your own life will still be there too, but you will meet it with more softness after rest, and your breath will feel easier. If you like, imagine that everyone listening is a circle of lights scattered across the world. Apartments, bedrooms, quiet cars parked outside a home, a night shift break room. Different places, same need, calm, different stories, same wish to feel held. And in that shared quiet, your loneliness can loosen a little because you are part of something human. It is okay to let the question lie on the sand. It will still be there when you wake, but it will be lighter because you will be lighter. Now imagine that the first light touches the limestone again. The enclosure walls gain a faint glow. The surface of the Sphinx shifts from black to deep grey. Its profile sharpens. The pores become visible as shapes within shadow. The face, high enough to catch the earliest brightness, begins to separate from the night, like an island rising from water. This is always the moment that feels most soothing, the moment when darkness and light overlap, when the world is neither fully asleep nor fully awake. It is the hour of gentle transitions, and gentle transitions are what the nervous system loves. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe you remember a sunrise you watched in silence. Maybe you remember a road trip where dawn found you still driving, the highway empty, the sky slowly turning blue. Maybe you remember the feeling of being up early in a quiet house when the world belonged only to you, and a cup of something warm. Those memories are not distractions. They are lanterns. They soften the dark. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Now let us place one more gentle thought beside the Sphinx before we move toward our final closing. The monument is often treated as a question mark, but it can also be treated as a comma. A comma is a pause, not an end. It invites you to breathe. It invites you to continue. The Sphinx, in that sense, is a pause in the long sentence of human time. It reminds us that we are not required to rush through our lives as if we are late. We can pause, we can look, we can breathe. We can let the world be larger than our schedule. And when you allow that, something opens inside you, a quiet spaciousness, like a room you forgot you had. In that room, your worries become smaller. Not because they vanish, but because they are no longer the only thing in the room. The room contains wind and stone and the steady east and the slow return of morning. So tonight, as you drift, let the Sphinx remain a presence rather than a problem. Let it keep its posture. Let it face the horizon for you so you do not have to. And if sleep is already arriving, let it arrive. You do not need to meet it halfway. You can simply soften into it the way sand softens under a gentle hand. In the next and final part, we will return one last time to the quiet wind, the repeating dawn, and the simple human lesson hidden inside ancient stone. That the most beautiful things often come in silence, and that peace does not always require a final answer. For now, breathe, and let your mind grow quiet enough to hear the softest thing of all, your own safety returning. The last part of our journey arrives the way sleep arrives when you've finally stopped pushing for it, quietly, naturally, without announcement. On the plateau, the darkest hour has passed. The air is cool and clear, and the stars are still bright, but they seem to hover more delicately now, as if they already sense they will soon fade. The wind moves with the same patient hush it has always had, brushing over limestone, lifting a small veil of sand, setting it down again. And the Sphinx remains. It holds its posture without strain. It faces the east without tiring. It waits for morning without worrying whether morning will come. If you are listening from your bed and your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. If your thoughts are slower than they were when the story began, let them stay slow. You have traveled a long way tonight, not in miles but in nervous system distance, from the busy speed of your day toward the calm steadiness of something ancient and quiet. Now let us return to the simplest image that has carried us all night, the eastern sky. Even before the sun arrives, the east begins to change. A faint, pale line appears at the horizon, so subtle it feels like a secret. Then the line widens. Then the darkness above it becomes a softer blue, as if night is loosening its grip with kindness. The Sphinx has watched this countless times. It has watched it through seasons when sand covered its body, leaving only the head as an island of stone. It has watched it through times when caretakers cleared sand away, revealing pores and flanks again. It has watched it through eras of repair and neglect and repair again. It has watched it through centuries when the world's languages changed, when empires rose and fell, when people came with reverence, curiosity, and questions. And still the dawn returned. This is where the monument's lesson becomes very simple and very healing. You can trust cycles. You can trust that darkness changes. You can trust that what feels heavy at night can feel lighter after rest. You can trust that you do not have to carry every question in your hands while you sleep, which brings us more peace, knowing a definite answer or accepting uncertainty. Tonight, you may have already felt the answer in your body. A definite answer can be satisfying, but acceptance can be soothing. Acceptance lets the shoulders drop. Acceptance lets the heart slow. Acceptance lets the mind stop scanning. And that is what you came for, not a debate, not a verdict, not a number shouted across the desert, but calm. So we let the Sphinx keep its quiet secret if it wants to. We let stone be stone. We let history be layered. We let the past be a wide room, not a tight corridor. Because there is another truth hidden inside the monument's silence. The most beautiful things often come in silence. They come like the first light at the horizon. They come like wind that does not demand your attention, but steadies you anyway. They come like the moment your breath deepens and you realize you are safe. In the faint growing light, imagine the Sphinx again, not as an argument, but as a companion. Its body is still mostly in shadow, but the face begins to catch the earliest glow. The limestone shifts from black to charcoal to soft grey. The dream stela between the pores becomes a darker rectangle against the pale sand. If you stand in your imagination near the monument, you might feel something tender, the sense that time is not only something that takes, time also gives. It gives seasons, it gives returns, it gives the chance to begin again after a hard day. It gives the gentle forgetting that allows sleep. Sometimes the mind clings to questions because it fears that letting go means losing meaning. But meaning does not vanish when you set a question down. Meaning stays. Meaning is like the Sphinx itself, enduring even when you stop looking directly at it. So you can put the question down now, you can set it beside the sand, and you can let it rest the way the plateau rests between dawn and day. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. If you are still awake, let your breathing slow even more. Inhale softly. Exhale softly. Feel the weight of your blanket. Feel the support beneath you. Feel how the room around you can be simple. A quiet ceiling, a quiet wall, the hush of night. You do not need to do anything else. You do not need to fix the world tonight. You do not need to fix yourself tonight. Rest is not a project, it is a return. Now let us bring our story to the place where it belongs. A gentle closing that does not jolt you awake, but tucks you in. We began at the edge of the plateau where the Sphinx simply was, and we ended with the same truth. It simply is. It has been buried and cleared, weathered and repaired, stared at and forgotten, and stared at again. It does not hold a date, it holds a presence. It holds the East, it holds the rhythm of return. And if you carry anything from tonight, let it be this. If a question remains open, it does not have to be a burden. It can be a window, something that lets cool night air pass through your mind without disturbing your peace. If the past is incomplete, it does not make the past meaningless. It makes it human. If your own story feels unfinished, it does not make you unworthy of rest. It makes you alive, and alive things need sleep. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. And now, as the eastern sky brightens and the Sphinx faces it with the same steady patience, let your eyes close fully if they haven't already. Let the wind become softer. Let the sand become still. Let the world become quiet. And if you find yourself drifting, let it happen. Because in this quiet corner of the night, you are safe.
Our story pauses here. Every visual and word you've experienced was assisted by AI, yet guided and perfected by sincere human emotion. We hope this harmony of history and technology has crafted a beautiful dream for you tonight. Let go and drift deep into sleep. Good night.